Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Man, it's been that long since I've done a live.
Not so easy, is it, buddy?
No. Hey,
Another
it's
edition of
Michael
Oilers
here.
Live Tuesday.
It's Michael here with Oilers Live for another Tuesday edition of Oilers Live. And happy to have everybody here. You see, we've got a new face, literally, today. Kirk Morris. I think it's the same guy that
What's his
writes
name?
for Heavy Hockey.
Keith,
Yeah.
You sure it's not Keith?
Keith, could be Keith.
Not sure anymore.
welcome to Heavy Hockey, Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you,
welcome.
sir. Thank you. Good to be here.
Welcome. In fact, we haven't seen you in a long time, so it's great to have you. And then we've got Mr. Ryan Lotsberg, a guy that writes while he's sleeping, I'm certain. And then the fella that filled in for me last week. He did an all right job. I mean, I only
Carried the
had a
show.
few complaints. Mr. Dash in the Park, thanks for joining, as always. What episode number is this?
50.
50. Coincidentally, that's
Drinking
how
my
old I look.
BioSteel, which basically guarantees me that I'm going to podcast like Connor McDavid plays hockey. Let's
Mhm.
fucking go.
Or Bedard. We now get to see Bedard. And
Sorry, Mom, I said flubbing.
did they say? Did I read somewhere Taylor Hall is going to mentor Connor Bedard this year? I thought that
They
was
have a cactus club there?
I don't know. Already we've got we've got some chats coming in live. Jesus, who's that beardless guy?
He used
we
to
already
be.
said that.
He used
Pay
to
attention,
be
some
Jesus,
stranger.
no longer Jesus. All right. Welcome to Oilers Live Tuesday. We're going to discuss some Oilers headlines tonight. Maybe, if we got time, talk a little bit about what's going on around the league. This is the first episode since July 1st, free agency day, which, was maybe the least splashy free agency day the Oilers have had in a long time.
Good.
I bet you somebody can tell me when it was. This has got to be the lowest in salaries that have gone out July 1 for Edmonton, and I don't know how many years. We'll have to look that up.
It's been a
kinda
while.
curious. It has been a very long time, so we'll talk about that. We've got some good articles to discuss by all the regular beat writers and everyone around the Oilers. Low Tide, of course. DNB, Mr. Ryan Lotsberg himself.
Always.
Tyler Yaremchuk for Oilers Nation.
One of these things is not like the other.
Wow, Yaremchuk. Wow. How much that guy feel? How much that guy feel? And then I put into the show notes, if you're watching on YouTube, I put in all of the links, but I will also put the QR code on the screen for everybody to follow along. And then we've got one other. I think it's Wood Guy, right? Is that who or
Yeah.
who put this one? Wood Guy?
I sent one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting.
So yeah, kind of an interesting. It is interesting. I had a chance to read it. It's a long read and a lot of stats in there. If you're a stats guy, you'll love this last one. We'll do that one last tonight. And as always, we'll check the chat if you're on YouTube or Facebook. Twitter, unfortunately, well, if it's working, if you're not over the rate limit and you're able to watch the show live on Twitter, you still can't chat with us because Twitter's doing its own thing. Musk is out training for a fight, is what I understand, and hasn't gotten around to paying his Google bill recently. So
Makes sense.
that's where we're at for that. All right, guys. How's that sound? Sound like a plan for today's round table?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Great
it's good.
hockey minds. All right, we're going to start with the first one today and really kind of cut into exactly what the Oilers have done. Mostly, I mean, their biggest move at the deadline and free agency day, July 1st, was the signing of Mr. Connor Brown. And so up in the top corner, we've got the QR code for Oilers sign Connor Brown. Article done by our very own Mr. Ryan Lotsberg. Outlines exactly what the Oilers paid for him. And also a couple of other folks in there. The Lane Peterson signing, Drake Kajula's back, the Drake, and a couple of other things. Folks, it's we look at I did say, from a dollars standpoint that the Oilers, this might have been the lowest amount of dollars we've seen in a long time. And I did say it wasn't a big splash, but in some ways this is a big splash, right? I mean, Connor Brown was a sought after free agent. The reason, though, it doesn't feel very splashy is because it's the league minimum, but it's the bonuses tied up into those. I'm going to start with you, Lotzi, because you are the man that wrote the article first, and we'll talk about the other players, but let's talk about Connor Brown first. Your thoughts on the signing itself, mainly the bonus, what you feel this takes. Is this a flashy signing for the Oilers? Does it make them better? What do you think?
I don't know if flashy is the right word, but it's a solid piece of business by Ken Holland to get Connor Brown, who's a reliable middle six, if not top six forward for the league minimum. Yes, there's performance bonuses involved once he plays 10 games. In case you didn't hear about the conditions, if he plays 10 games, he's eligible for his $3.25 million performance bonus. And most of that or all of that will be carried over into next year, depending on how things shake out. But that's next year's problem. We're trying to win a Stanley Cup this year, and we just got a top six winger for the league minimum. So I think that's very tidy work by Ken Holland for sure.
I mean, he's over a half point a game player when he's healthy.
Yeah,
right?
So his last 3 years in Ottawa, he was in and around 0.6 points per game, like never below that, but just barely above that. So pretty consistent over 3 years in Ottawa on, let's be real, a terrible team. That was had some exciting pieces coming up during that time, but they weren't.
They're terrible.
They were terrible. Yeah. So to be 0.6 points per game on that team, pretty good. That adds up to 49 points over 82 games if he was to stay healthy for all 82. It's like that's that far. Like Kyler Yamamoto, just for comparison's sake, his best year was 40 points, right? So like that's an upgrade on Yamamoto instantly.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, and maybe head over to Dash for this one. I mean, you take in Connor Brown. I said it's not splashy, but it is splashy in its own way. But a big part of that is removing Yamamoto to get cap space. What are your thoughts on the Connor Brown piece, and then how Holland came about actually making this work?
Look, it's like Blink 182 says, it's all about the small things. I think it's a good piece of business. I don't know if I could say it better than Lotzi did, to be honest. It's not flashy, but it's going to make our team bigger. It's going to make our team faster. It's going to give us a higher commitment to D, and we're a better team because of it. So, I think he's a much better Janmark. Maybe not as durable, but a much better Janmark for half the price. Holland, I don't know. Bearsy, you were down and the guy could never make a creative deal, and all he's done since you said that is make creative deals, and this is another one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not the first time I say something and people go out to prove me wrong.
You did say Connor McDavid wouldn't get 50 goals this year.
I did say that too. Yeah.
So do you.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, the Flames were also supposed to finish first in the Pacific, right? Yeah. All right, Kirk, your thoughts on this? Thoughts on Holland getting the Connor Brown deal done? Thoughts on the bonus?
In order to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs, right? And with that bonus, like 10 games, I would have pushed for 15 or 20 at least, or maybe X amount of goals. But I see where he was coming from there, just to, make sure that the knee's 100% type of deal. And he's been offered nearly a year, if I'm not mistaken, or close
5 games
to it.
or 4 games
into
the
he played 4 last year.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I get the bonus, like, and you're basically kicking that can down the road for next year's, paying it out on July the 1st. But I see people that are, heartbroken over losing Yamo, and I get it, but you have to upgrade it. He was unfortunately the weakest link during the playoffs, except for that, that series clincher against Los Angeles. But you're adding more security. And if he does play in the top 6, even better. That leaves a little runway for the kids like Holloway or even Lavoie to make an appearance, and maybe they'll step up to the plate there too. It's kind of nudging everybody along, saying, hey, we need to see you guys perform. And yeah, that's I'm not surprised. I'm literally not surprised. It was like, as everybody said here, it's the worst kept secret for the last year. He played with Connor McDavid in Erie, and he racked up a ton of points. Like, it just didn't make sense. Makes sense.
Same agent as McDavid. Hey, since I'm the associate host, let me ask a question here. Connor Brown over or under 20 goals?
I'd go over. Like, another thing that I don't know that many people have pointed out, but Connor Brown has a career shooting percentage of 11.2%. He's a right shot, above average finisher. What have we been searching for how many years in Edmonton? A right-handed finisher, right?
Bingo.
So, I mean, we've arrived at that. Brown had 2 really good outlier years. He had a year where he was at 17 something, and 1 year where he was at 14 something. But he had 3 years at like between 9.1 and 9.3. So he's pretty consistently either at or above the league average as a right-handed scoring winger. So I think that's easy candidate for 20 goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's
over under.
You didn't even let me talk about the article for Mr. Associate Host. I mean, this is something, this is what I want to talk about, and it actually ties in with your over under on the 20 goals, right? Is this contract and the bonuses. I mean, it affects something. Yeah, Holland needs to be creative, but it affects how we look at this Bouchard deal, however it happens, right?
Yeah, good point.
And
he's using that extension money.
But the thing is, all you need to do is go on to Puckpedia and check out what guys are making for 0.6. Forwards are making for 0.6 points per game, right? And it's right up there in the 4 million range, right?
Bo Byram didn't do us any favors.
Yeah, 4 million. 4 million's in fact, it's over that. It's over 4 million. So if you can get a player that's going to do 0.6 and has some history with the best player in the world, and you can get them for 4 million and only count at the league minimum in the year that you need it to count at the league minimum.
Yeah,
then
that's probably why the performance bonus condition was 10 games played, because they know what Connor Brown's value is. His agent knows what his value is, so they made that performance bonus pretty attainable.
And look, 10 games, realistic, right? You're going to know in 10 games if the guy's knee is all right, right?
Yeah. Some stranger's been talking to Garfield, and he heard that there was a better Tim wrestler. So,
it would not surprise me if there was a little bit better of a deal, maybe bonus wise. But I think everybody was probably anybody that was talking to the agent. I mean, the guy hasn't played for over a season now, or when did he play last?
He played 4 games last year.
4 games last
October,
year. Yeah. So it's been a while. It's a risk. 10 games is 10 games. You gotta, when you get into the contract, his agent, Holland probably said 20 and his agent said 10 or 5, or they settled at 10, and that was what they got it done at. At the end of the day, if he makes 20 games, 30 games, 40 games, I think if he plays with Connor McDavid, guaranteed he's over 20 goals.
Yeah.
But we've thought a lot of times on this team that guys are going to play with Connor McDavid. We thought Holloway was going to be a top 6 guy after the preseason last year.
It's not easy to play with Connor McDavid. Everyone thinks that you could put a pylon on the ice with Connor and you'll score 50 goals, but no, it's hard to play with
not
Connor
everybody
McDavid.
Can be Ty Ratty.
Exactly. Well, look how long it took to find somebody to play with Sidney Crosby. Same sort of idea, right? Like it took a Chris Kunitz. Who's Chris Kunitz of all guys that ended up being Crosby's most successful winger.
That's why I was chirping Ragu in our thread, because it's Hall and Bedard are gonna light it up. Well, are they? They both want to carry the puck up the ice, and they both want to have it on their stick, right? It's not like you got Hyman going to the net and that's his game, or Kunitz digging pucks out of the corner like a Yamamoto plus 100 pounds,
Yeah, you're the only way you get a guy like Connor Brown is if he's coming off injury, right? Mm-hmm. And you can do this. This is, the Evander Kane thing, right? It's like it happens at the right time. Connor Brown happened to get injured at the right time, and Holland's the benefactor of it if he plays more than 10 games, right? Like if Brown can stay solid for a full season, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's really had injury problems.
This is his first one. I think Gregor came out with a tweet where he said that Brown's missed 18 games in his career prior to this knee injury.
Now, a knee injury is a different beast altogether.
Yep.
But
ACL.
Yeah. But this is one of those fortunate signings, and I think if it works out, it'll be nothing but good for the Oilers. It's
if you tear your knee up in Edmonton, McDavid just takes you to his Mr. Miyagi.
That's right. That's right.
That's all fixed up.
Let's talk a little bit about what else is in this article by Lotzi, which again, if you scan the QR code at the top or check the show notes on YouTube, you can find the link. There were a couple other signings, of course. The Drake, Mr. Kajula is back. He had a pretty successful AHL career. Do we expect to see him at all this year in the NHL?
Only if there's injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. He's an AHL winger at best, or that's where he's going to shine. But he can certainly strap him or lace him up and play fourth line minutes in an NHL game. He's not what he was back in his first stint in Edmonton, but he's still good enough to play on your fourth line.
I'll add an answer to that if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, fair.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's 29 now, so he's not in that middle 20s range, but it's
Still fly.
Yeah, damn good season there with Wilkes-Barre though last year.
He can fly,
Yeah,
man. He's
hell of
still
a
got
season.
wheels.
What did he had over 50 points, right? And
Yeah,
60-some
22 and
games.
35 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I like the
definitely
way he played back
organizational
then.
depth. I think that's more for
Yeah.
Bakersfield than for us, but it's a good signing.
Yeah, good signing there, two-way. And then Lane Peterson, good Saskatoon boy, Toontown boy, gets gets the signing center. He was a guy that I had thought. I mean, he was one of the few Group 6 RFAs that was available that had over any amount of time in the NHL. So that I think is a good signing. Just a little bit more competition for that fourth line center position. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. He's a right shot, if I believe.
Yep.
If I remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 51% I think on the face-off, which is not bad.
Yep.
Yeah, so you add Gruby, you add Peterson. That's a couple more right-handed centers, probably for Bakersfield, but Peterson could come up and play for Edmonton in a pinch if needed be.
For sure.
17 games, he's been there.
So after July 1st, and this maybe cuts into some of the other articles that we were going to discuss. So that there is Oilers signed Connor Brown with a couple of extras from Lotzie. You find that at heavyhockey.com. We'll go to the next one, which was Low Tide. And, of course, you got to be a subscriber here. But Low Tide talks about the same players. So Brown, his potential deployment and the deployment of some of the other players on the ice, specifically Yamamoto and Puljujarvi, and their goal percentages with Connor McDavid. So he does talk about in this article about the salary and the bonuses potentially being an albatross for the Oilers next year. Lane Peterson, and then a couple of other depth signings, Noel Hoffenmeyer, and then Ben Gleason. Any thoughts on those two guys?
Just more AHL depth, and if we really hit the skids there with injuries, you can bring. I think Hoffenmeyer had a little bit of time there with the Leafs last year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how many games it was, but it's good to have that depth. Just to shore up everything. And I don't know, maybe I'm just talking right off the cuff here, but when you have that depth, it's always good to have, even if it's young. At least if you have people that have had AHL experience, to step up to the plate, it's better than throwing a greenhorn rookie there right to the Wolves. But on the other hand, you do see what you have organizationally, depth wise as well, when it comes to your draft picks and your prospects as well.
Yeah.
I think these two kids that are coming in, you're really starting to see Steve Staios' influence. Yeah, Gleason actually played for the Hamilton Bulldogs with Staios, right?
Yeah.
And Hoffenmeyer is also another OHL kid, so Staios would have seen a lot of him firsthand as well. So that just goes to show, Holland talked about Staios wanting to get Staios a little more involved this year, and I think we're seeing that.
Well, Hoffenmeyer's the way that he has come about, right? Spending some time in the ECHL, moving to the AHL, but just developing right through. I like that in a defenseman, right? And that's something where they, as Holland always banks on, that they develop a little bit later, but just to see constant improvement, right? It doesn't necessarily mean they have to start right away in the AHL. I think that, look at Desharnais, right? I mean, there's a good example of a guy that just, takes the right amount of time, and Hoffenmeyer, you're pretty good to bet on a guy like that that's showing improvement rather than a guy that's going the other way, right?
100%.
All right, and then the last one on the Athletic again. If you're a subscriber, QR code's up now. You can check that out or check it out in the show notes. Is Daniel Nugent Bowman writes about, and this is kind of important, and it's about the evolution of the Oilers as the season progresses. And we had a little bit of a chat about this in the Heavy Hockey group chat, which was, is it better to make a splash on free agency day or make moves closer to the trade deadline? And I think, at the end of that, it was a brief discussion. There was a lot of, I think, agreement that, it's a bit of both, right? And I think a few of us, or many of us, thought that it was closer to the deadline where, you get those real sort of impact moves, if you will. DNB kind of writes about this roster being an evolution, right? And it's got to continue into next season. So thoughts on, one of the things that I'm kind of looking at here is, did the Oilers get better, right? Or are they the same? Are they worse? And is Holland doing this right? Or maybe he doesn't really have many options, obviously. But your thoughts on how they need to evolve as the season progresses, or maybe needs that they have. Dash.
The team's better. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think we're bigger. I think we're faster. I think there's a better commitment to D. All of those things are going to probably lead to more consistency. Connor Brown's an elite penalty killer, Ekholm for an entire season on the penalty kill as well. I think, as far as the article goes, I think what worries me is the roster has to be an evolution, but the biggest move you made just gave us $3 million in dead cap space next year. It's tough to make your roster evolve into year after year after year, competing for a Stanley Cup, year after year after year, when you go and take a risk like that. It doesn't matter whether he scores 6 goals or what does it say? 8 or 38. You're paying that money next year.
Yeah.
And if the cap doesn't go up $4 million,
yeah,
that's his gamble.
That's always
the cap.
That's always the concern.
Well, Saravelli there was even talking about the cap could go up as 5 or even 6. Like, they don't know. Like, it all depends on the revenues, right? So depends who's making the Stanley Cup final. If and I'm not making bold predictions here. We never do that here. If Edmonton goes to the final, boy, that'd be a nice shot in the arm for revenue. Just saying. So, who knows?
Hopefully, Bettman's watching right now.
Yeah. Make it happen, Gary.
Yeah, make it happen. Lots of your thoughts. I mean, the evolution of this team, is the team better? Are they worse? Are they the same? How do you see this?
I'm going to say slightly better right now, mostly because of deployment. Like, our top 6 got better, and Woodcroft leans heavily on his top 6. So, we're better in that respect. There are some questions on the bottom 6, and like it or not, we're going to be relying on some internal evolution from some younger guys. Like, how big of a role is Dylan Holloway going to play, right? Great preseason last year, rough start, injury. And then he went to the AHL, got injured. When he came back, he played well when he came back. But we don't know what he's going to be be in the top 9 potentially, but there's also a very real chance that a guy like Kajula beats him out and he ends up in Bakersfield. Raph Lavoie, great second half last year. We got a roster spot earmarked for him. We don't know what he's going to be at the NHL level, if he's even ready. And then the other thing is Cody Ceci, is he going to be back to full health? And then what of Philip Broberg? Is he going to take a step this year? Does he slide over and surpass Ceci on the second pairing? Or does he, is there a way to squeeze Broberg in somehow? I don't know. So I think that's where the evolution is going to come from, is finding the answers to those questions out. But as far as dealing at the trade deadline, I was pretty vocal about this last year. You got to have the cap space, and making the big splash at the deadline doesn't guarantee cups. Look at the Rangers. You add Tarasenko, you add Kane, you're out in the first round, right? So making that big trade deadline splash isn't always the most. It doesn't guarantee a win. Neither does signing a bunch of
Oilers
agents in the summer. But for the Oilers, yeah, apparently it will.
Ekholm was a pretty big splash.
But we didn't win, did we?
Yeah, no, you know what? The way I look at it is this. I think
we're agreeing with you. Calm down.
Yeah, you overpay at overpay at free agency day, and you overpay at the deadline. And where you overpay sometimes matters. But one thing I like about at the deadline is you don't know what kind of injuries are happening throughout the season. In fact, that's why there's a performance bonus on Connor Brown's contract, right? Is he, is this knee, going to hold up for 10 games, right?
He'll put that knee back together with duct tape and sticks and popsicle sticks.
Game 11.
Yeah, 3.25 million.
Damn right.
On game 11, he'll be out. But
Connor Brown plays game on amputated leg. What a hero!
Playing like a what was it? They're playing a wheelchair or whatever. Just to make it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, you got these guys, and whether they make it a full season or whether Connor Brown pans out as the guy that you hope he's going to be on McDavid's right wing, right? Or do we have another Yamamoto instance, right, where you have high hopes for a guy to come in and that dynamite line of Nuge, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto just never panned out again, right? Like it was never the same. And year over year, who knows? Maybe there's something in the water. Who knows? It's not always the same year over year. And so I always kind of like to think whatever happened in the summer and however it carries over into the season, the only time you'll know what you need is as the season progresses. If you can, I think, a smart GM will make one or two little moves, if they can, a month before the deadline, not big overpays, maybe not too splashy, but little bits and pieces. And I like the big move for Ekholm. I think we all did, right? Whether the Oilers won the Stanley Cup, I think it was a great move. That from a deadline deal acquisition is pretty solid because the Oilers aren't, they go into this year now with a guy that really, upped their defensive game. Everybody keeps talking about the Oilers needing, and I think a lot of it has to do with the Holland's own comments about wanting to get a little bit better defensively. I think they can do it with the squad they have. Like I don't think I don't know. I have to read it again, but Holland says they need to get better defensively. Doesn't necessarily mean they need to bring somebody new in.
Dude, we got walked by Jack Eichel.
Yeah,
you need better defensive centers. You do.
No, but these guys, like from a defensive side, they just need to be better defensively. Like some of these guys have to progress a little bit more. Desharnais.
Yeah, Derek Ryan's certainly going to improve enough to be Jack Eichel for sure. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about the Jack Eichel thing with the last article as well,
Yeah,
because some would argue that that wasn't the problem at all. Some would argue,
Yep.
obviously, Wood Guy argues
the
that
guy did argue it. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
it wasn't Desharnais, it wasn't Ekholm, it wasn't anybody, but it was utilization, line matching.
It was.
But my point is you've got a full season. The Oilers were what, 6th in the league defensively with Ekholm?
I can't remember,
That was
but
trending
yeah, it was
in the
up
right
there.
direction even before Ekholm. Like after Christmas,
Based on
they
what,
were
goals
top
for and
6, I
against?
believe.
No, like goals against, I think. I think they were 6th in the league in the post Ekholm era. I might be wrong. It might be 7th, but it was top 10.
And like I say, that was trending that way before Christmas too. Like if you look at if Christmas is your interval, like they're in the same sort of conversation even before the Ekholm trade.
And let's also keep in mind that this is maybe the longest in our lifetimes that we've seen the Oilers keep coaching staff, right? Like there's finally some consistency.
It's pretty much a merry-go-round there for
Yeah.
a long time.
Like I
More
loved
importantly,
what,
this is the first time in a long time there hasn't been people holding torches and pitchforks for wanting the coach's head.
oh yeah, and I love what Holland was saying about how teams progress year over year, right? How they need to be there. They need to first be in the conversation every year, right? Like you can't even, and that's why I don't mind the deadline, right? Because a deadline deal, because you have to get to the playoffs first, right? And so let's focus on that. I think about it in terms of, if anybody's ever responded to an RFP in their lifetime, they understand that you got to get past that first deadline. You got to get past that first before they shortlist you. And this is how hockey is. They shortlist everybody in the regular season, and that's who gets to play for the Stanley Cup. Is the shortlist. Were you good enough to make it to the playoffs? Great. Now you can play for the Stanley Cup, which is a whole different season, right? And we all know that. It's a whole different season. So every season you make a deal. We call that free agency day, right? Every season you make a deal. And then the second season you make deals again. That's on deadline day. And yeah, we got to evolve. The Oilers will have I'm not a puck or I'm not a salary guru, how that salary cap works. But the Oilers will have a little bit more space to play with, assuming they're not taking any LTIR right into the second half of the season. And I don't know 100% how that works, but I know it's good in their favor, right? That they don't have this LTIR and they can accrue some space as the season progresses. So this is all good as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, evolution always happens. A team that doesn't make any changes at the deadline, has there ever been a Stanley Cup team that took their regular season team to the Stanley Cup? Like Vegas made changes at the deadline.
Yeah,
But how much is too much?
Yeah.
I'm sorry
top
for
teams usually
cutting
do
in there,
something.
Lottie.
No, you're all good. No, the top teams usually do some tinkering. It isn't always the big names, but it's a depth defenseman here, a depth center there. Like there's always something.
So you don't have to take an apology from the new guy Keith there. There's a hierarchy here.
Sorry, everybody.
Now, some stranger does bring up one thing that needs to factor into this better defensive game, and that's this lighter competition in the second half. So I'll give it that, but I do think that the Oilers played better defensively in the second half. But yeah, it's a good point. Lighter competition. I do watch the chats, just so you know. Some 97 octane hockey in here. Skid Arizona and the cap could go up a lot.
Yeah, good luck to that.
Yeah, well, we all hope for that eventually.
It's Bettman's El Dorado. He just keeps mining and panning away for gold, and it never shows.
Yeah.
97 octane. That's cool that a radio station on FM would listen to us.
All right, guys. So we got one more article, and then we'll talk about the wood guy piece. And it's not an article at all, but more of a it's the depth chart. It's the DFO lines as they see them. I chose this, and it's more of a continuation on what we talked about. But there's a lot of things that you can take from just looking at these lines. I put the link to the lines in the QR code. It's also in the show notes. I'll read them out here for you guys. This is as DFO sees our depth chart with the players on the roster today. I don't know how they come up with these, but they're usually pretty good or pretty close. So they've got Hyman, McDavid, and Brown on line 1. Nuge, Draisaitl, and Kane on line 2. Janmark, McLeod, and Fogle on line 3. Holloway, Peterson, and Derek Ryan on the 4th line. Defensive pairings, we've got Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci, Ekholm and Bouchard, and then Kulak and Desharnais. So obviously sitting out in that is Broberg. First thoughts. If the season starts today, pretty accurate in your minds? Kirk?
Yeah, I'd say pretty close. It's just, yeah. What do you guys think about like the bottom 6? Like, I know it's pretty much rearranging deck chairs there, but do you think Lane Peterson starts? Does somebody step up from the kids and say, I want in? Because that's basically why they got the vets, was to push the kids, right? Or am I wrong?
I think that's the biggest question mark, right? Is, who starts on that 4th line center role? And is it, it's not likely to be the same guy at the start of the season that it is at the end of the season. Not to mention, do you go 11-7? Is that a Woodcroft play right from the start in order to, eliminate the need for that decision to be made at all? Right?
Yeah. And
Maybe you put Broberg in.
Didn't Holland say he's still looking for a 4th line center, or he's looking to sign another center? Right. Yep. Like, it all depends. Like the wonderful thing and perhaps frustrating thing about this roster is that there is a lot of versatility. Like, you got guys that can play multiple positions. Like, you got Derek Ryan that can play center and wing. You got Matthias Janmark that can play any forward position. Like, Holloway can even play center. Maybe not at the NHL level yet, but he can play center. And Fogle can play either left or right side. It's like there's a lot of different things you can do with the bottom 6, and same idea in the top 6. Like, those are the 6 bodies that'll be up there. It's just what order will they be in? I don't agree with what DFO has because they have Kane on the right side. He's never a right winger. You're going to have one of Hyman or Draisaitl over there, and I think probably Hyman to start the year. So my lines are totally different than what they have, but the bodies are all there.
Well, let's hear it. I mean, how would you? And I think you had it in your article, the Connor Brown article. You had here. I'll read them out for everybody. This is as you see it, and of course you didn't do the 4th line, but you'd have Kane, McDavid, and Hyman, Nuge, Draisaitl, and Brown. If this is this how you'd see it?
Yeah, that's pretty close. I might swap Kane and Nuge, but yeah, I like the right wing and center combination there.
Yeah, Fogle, McLeod, and Ryan, Holloway, and Janmark on the 4th, and then open in terms of who's playing in that 4th line. But you've got Ryan right now anyway, and I suspect that's just because of the limits on right wing. Right, you got Ryan playing 3rd line.
Yeah, realistically, right. I think they'd slide Janmark there. So, but they did. I mean, Woodcroft loved that Fogle, McLeod, Ryan line in the playoffs. So that's kind of why I just stuck with it there. But like, I'd like to see Janmark up there over Ryan, and even in an even more ideal scenario, I'd like to see us sign a right winger that's better than Derek Ryan, and then to bump Ryan down to the fourth line. Like if your fourth line is Holloway, Janmark, Ryan, I think that's pretty good.
What do you think? And maybe Dash, what's your thoughts though on the depth chart right now? Like these DFO line combinations, and I doubt very much. I think they just sort of slot guys where, if they're a right winger, then they'll put, Connor Brown is maybe expected to play with McDavid right now. We'll see, but Dash, your thoughts on the lines?
Yeah, I don't agree with these combinations for sure. I think we'll see Hyman and Kane flank McDavid, and Draisaitl will have new jet times, and I don't know. I wouldn't throw Connor Brown all the way up onto the top line. I think that he's probably going to start in a second or third line, and to Lotzie's point, if we can get some depth on right wing, that pushes everybody down one as well, so that Brown's playing on the third line where he should be, etc. In preparation for this, went back and looked at the DFO depth chart for last year. So why don't we just compare the two? And I think the biggest part that we're missing in all of this is whether we'll be better or not. I'll argue fist to teeth with anybody that we're not better this year. There's no way that we're not better this year. And the key to all of that is Ekholm for 82 games. That's it right there. That's why we're better. He's our best defenseman, and we'll have him for 75% more of the season. Opening day roster last year had Puljujarvi on the top line. He's going to need an NHL player. We had Holloway with Draisaitl and Hyman on the second line. Holloway is not a second line player. Nuge, McLeod, Fogle, sure. Malone and Shore on the fourth line. Are we better than that, you guys? We had Murray with Bouchard on our third pairing. Are we better than that, you guys?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Above and beyond, yeah.
Campbell in the pipes? Well, no
right.
comment. Let's not
We're
get
the
into
same.
that.
We're the same.
Let's not get
Oh,
into
what a
that.
show.
It's still the off season. We got lots.
Yeah, of course we're better. Of course we're better. We're bigger. We're better. We have a better commitment to defense.
Do you think CC gets out of his brain fog and actually does play defense this coming season, or what?
Well, I think it's a combination of the injury as well. I think if he can stay healthy, get out of the brain fog, that's fine. You know what I heard on Stoff and Speck talking about it today on Oilers Now was Stoffer asked Spector how he would like the D pairings if it was Nurse with Bouchard on the top pairing, and then having the two Swedes together and Broberg and Ekholm on the second pairing, so that you could slot CC and Kulak together on the third pairing. And I don't know why we've never talked about that before. Like it's damn near genius, right? Like look what Ekholm did for Bouchard. Look what Keith did for Bouchard. If Ekholm can do anything close to that for Broberg, and then you've got CC and Kulak playing third line minutes. That's the best third line pairing in maybe the NHL, you guys.
My fear with that is how you led into that was look what Keith did for Bouchard, and then look what Ekholm did for Bouchard. They're doing that for Bouchard, right? So if you take Bouchard off of that pairing, what Bouchard do we get, right?
Yeah. I think this is disrespect to Bouchard. I think Bouchard's a big boy. He can stand on his own two legs.
Yeah, I'm not
even
saying
when he was
he
playing with
can't.
Broberg this season. Those two as a pair were
they had
really good.
Good analytics together. Really good analytics.
They had really good analytics together. Just the puck luck wasn't going their way. But like if you gave that a full 82 games, I think you'd see that even out or even go in their favor. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just trying to make a point that I don't think we need to. I don't think saying that Ekholm helped Bouchard or look at what Keith did for Bouchard is giving Bouchard enough credit for the player that he is.
Well, you'd hope that he matured, learned,
Absolutely.
and he'll carry that forward no matter who he plays with. But, that's just typical Bearsy with the gas filled up in the bus and his foot revving the engine,
Right.
And like it's not
Do you-
just Bearsy
do you think
saying that stuff. Like you see it on Twitter, you see it in everybody's commentary all the time. But like no, like put some respect on Bouchard's name, everybody.
So you think he was as
Name
good
the episode.
without Ekholm? Just curious.
Yeah, like all the underlying numbers last year supported that. It just the goal share went up and the puck started going in the net for him once Ekholm showed up.
It's got to be a boost of confidence though when you get rid of Barry and then you get thrusted into the first unit power play. That's an
Absolutely.
automatic
There's
boost.
something to be said for that. Absolutely. A
If
little-
we hire Lotzie in the office and he learns Microsoft Word with you, and then he learns Excel with Kirk, and then he goes and starts to work with me in the next office, he doesn't forget what Word and Excel are. Like, you just go out and keep playing hockey. You learn what you learned, and you should be able to carry that forward because you're playing the NHL. He's the most offensive, outside of Drew Doughty, he is the most offensive Ontario League defenseman in the history of hockey. Like, this is his potential.
So some stranger thinks, right, Bouchard needs a sitter. I think it's a combination of both. I think, yeah, you got to throw some respect to Bouchard, but I also think we see a more confident Bouchard when he's playing with a better player, a defensive stalwart kind of guy, a veteran kind of guy like Ekholm. I think the answer is in the middle. I think,
Except when he played with Broberg, he carried that pairing, and they had excellent.
I mean, you can talk about underlying, and this is where I love the stats side, but at the same time, right? Like, we're talking puck luck, right? Like, at the end of the day, whoever's got the most puck luck wins, right? And if playing with Ekholm and playing with Keith give you more puck luck, right? Well, you win, right? And if and who like sometimes, hey, there's a lot of times where I totally love the stats. They show some things we don't see, but at the end of the day, the hope is, right, with if you're a stats guy, that puck luck eventually evens out and goes to the norm, and the stats will prove out true. But stats within a limited sample size, don't mean anything, right? That's why I can't remember who it is that writes for The Athletic and does every year. He does this is where he expects every team to go based on stats, right?
Like power rankings.
Yeah, no, he gives his expected standings, and they're about 50% year over year. I keep watching them.
That'd be Dom Lucian, I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's Lucian. And I think stats tell a good story about certain things, but they have to be over time. And quite typically, they don't tell the story until it's after the fact, right? Like, after Bouchard's career is done, then we can look at his stats and say, yeah, this is the kind of player that he was. But while his career is ongoing, we have to be cognizant of the fact that his puck luck is better when he's playing with veteran guys. Now, I just don't think you take him off of that Ekholm line. Like, you keep those two of them together, and
don't you're driving Broberg out of town with your boss. Holy hell!
Like, the scary thing about that list of recommended pairings, where it's Nurse Bouchard and then Ekholm Broberg, like that Nurse Bouchard pairing, like, it's going to scare a lot of people defensively. But like, they always have incredible shot share numbers. Like, they drive puck possession, and that line's going to play with a McDavid or a Draisaitl most of the time. So the puck's going to be in the right end of the ice most often when that pairing's out there. And then if you can shut it down with an Ekholm pairing, if it's Ekholm Broberg or whatever, and then you have Kulak CC, which should be pretty solid. Maybe not the most I'm sure that NHL Sid at Oilers Nation has done pieces where he's said Kulak and CC maybe aren't the best pairings together. I'd have to go back and look. But I don't hate that combination either. It's just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But Ekholm Bouchard,
kind of third pairing, you have completely different responsibilities, though. Yeah, and I think when they play together, they're as a second pairing, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, a lot of things can change this year, right? Like, Nurse has been typically taking the most minutes, right? How does that change going into this season with Ekholm there for a full season, right? And does that actually help Nurse's game considerably for the full season, right? Like I thought during the beginning of last season, he was ridiculously awful at times defensively. I don't care what the stats say. I watched him. He was awful. Like he was going this way and that on certain plays. The only thing that I wish I could remember or I wish I put down was at what time of the game he was doing that. Because it was near the end of the game when he was maybe more tired than he should have been.
I think
Right?
there were mistakes at all times. Like there were a couple in December near the end of the game where, like, yeah, brain farts, they happen. Like,
and think about it though from a mental perspective. If you're the defenseman that you think you have to carry the team, don't even think from a physical fatigue, but from a mental fatigue that you have to be better than you are, right? To shoulder that load. Like that's got to really run on a guy.
Oh, they call that Justin Schultz syndrome. Future Norris Trophy winner right there.
Like as far as how the ice time is going to be distributed, like I think you'll see a lot of situations where it's not Nurse and CC. Like I don't think Nurse's ice time is going to go down much at all. It'll be Nurse Broberg, it'll be Nurse Darnay at times, right? To get those guys some more action and work on their development playing against elite competition or like things like
That's
that.
why I love that. That's why I love the 11 and 7 combination. I thought last year at times Nurse and Darnay were wicked, and I think if you get Nurse not to think out of the box so often, jumping up into the rush and whatever else, if you keep him on somewhat of a defensive leash where you've got Darnay, you've got to, be that calming presence. He's good. He's freaking awesome. It's just when he starts thinking offensive, I got to jump into the rush. That's where it kind of comes unhinged. And then you've got, I wouldn't say lesser defensive coverage, but somebody else has to step up and cover for him. Like when he does have those coffee moments. Lord knows he's had a few.
He's had a couple. I'm a huge Darnell Nurse fan.
Oh, I am too. Yeah.
And
you and Ragu.
Yeah.
He's even got his jersey.
Yeah. He did get
bought at the same auction as the picture hanging behind you.
That's right. Oh man. I mean, I just think, there's a lot of things, whether it's minutes that Nurse plays or it's mental fatigue, just from feeling like you're the guy that has to carry the team, right? And not only were there points where Nurse felt defensively he had to carry the team, but where he felt he was the only offensively minded defenseman because he was playing 30 minutes a game that could help the team, right? So I think he's just, there were times where he was suffering from having to do too much.
Yeah, and like a lot of that's covering for teammates' mistakes. It's Cody Ceci with a bad read, or somebody misses an assignment in a neutral zone and it's an odd man rush coming the other way. It makes Darnell look bad, right? Like if you're on the ice for a goal against and you're the last line of defense, it's not always your fault. And I think we see a lot of that with Darnell Nurse.
Well, that's why plus minus sucks so much, right? Yeah. And this whole defensive core now is easily better than it was at least at the start of last season. And you pointed that out really well, Dash, with how that the start of the season, maybe it's equal to how it ended the season, but I think you've got Desharnais, who now has had some playoff experience and who got way better as the playoffs progressed. And that kind of thing is going to help out. I think Bouchard got some really great confidence. The biggest question mark for me is Cody Ceci.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a question mark that I'm not all that worried about because he can be just average and be helpful to this team, right? And we didn't get to the Yaremchuk article on Oilers Nation titled "Short-Term Gain." Short-term pain, long-term gain.
Said he wasn't worth it.
That's right. I mean, the one of the keys that Yaremchuk talks about is people were talking about getting rid of CC for cap space and then having to replace him. Well, lots of you talked about this. Like, who are you going to replace CC with? Luke Shen got 3. Radko Gudas got 4. Hall's AAV was close to 4. This is all in the Yaremchuk article.
Yep. No,
I mean,
you had some good
you
points
can't.
there.
There was nothing
None
you
of
could
those
do.
guys are better than CC, and they're making more money.
Yeah,
Exactly. And like Brett Pesci would be amazing, but even to get that extra $750K onto that roster, you got to give up somebody else. Like, that's a whole other player that you got to just give
Pesci's
up.
walking straight back to the United States after 1 year.
Yeah, and we might not have the cap space to sign him next year with the Brown situation. Is Evan Bouchard getting a 1 year or a 2 year deal? If it's a 1 year deal, we got to sign both that Bouchard and Pesci. Not happening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we're at the hour mark. Somebody gave us shit the other day for being over an hour. And so, if they're listening,
Do as they say, not as I do, our
That's
boss
right.
says.
That's right. We're not going to get to the Wood Guy article. We'll have to get to that next week. That one's doesn't have an expiry on it. So we can
point.
talk about that one next week. Want to say thank you to Kirk's twin brother for joining the pod today.
My name's
Mr.
Keith.
Ryan Lotsberg. My name's Keith.
I'm from Canmore.
hockey, Keith.
Mr. Dash in the Park. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will be doing the Heavy Hockey Showdown on February 24th, which is the Battle of Alberta. Put that in your calendars. It is yet to be decided on a couple of the finer points, but the date is for sure, so put that in your calendar. And what else? Big news. I should have opened with fantasy hockey hacks, guys.
Yeah.
So for those of you tuning in, whether it's here or listening to the podcast, Fantasy Hockey Hacks, one of my favorite fantasy podcasts. And while they do fantasy hockey, they're, I think, majority Oilers fans. So they fit well with our group. They've joined the Heavy Hockey Network. And so you'll see some fantasy hockey content on the Heavy Hockey site. You'll see those guys hopefully on some of the podcasts as part of the Heavy Hockey Network, and vice versa. You'll see some of our guys on their podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. But I think a really good indicator of where we're going and some of the things that we want to do. I think it's a positive move for Heavy Hockey. I'm just happy to have those guys on there. So check them out. You can get them at FH Hockey on Twitter, I think. What is it? What is it, guys? I should know this already. Damn it. Fact check me. Somebody help me out here. At Fantasy Hockey. It's FH Hacks. Sorry. I knew I was getting it wrong. So FH Hacks on Twitter. So check them out. Fantasy Hockey Hacks. Again, great. I think they're actually recording a podcast tonight to release. This is a big time of year for them as people start to get ready for their pools in the upcoming season. Really great guys. They know their stuff, so check that out. And as I said, February 24th for the Heavy Hockey Showdown. I don't think I've got any other announcements as far as heavy hockey goes, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in again. We'll be back next Tuesday. I might need a guest host. Actually, I will need a guest host. I'll be in enemy territory in Calgary next Tuesday. So I'll definitely need somebody to come on board to do Oilers Live. Maybe an associate host can run it, or somebody.
You can find one.
Hint, hint. 51st episode, maybe. All right, that's it for that. I don't think I've got anything else. It's been a great great offseason, I think, as far as the Oilers are concerned, given what they had to play with. That's all I'll say. I think Holland didn't have much. There's always a lot of moving parts. I think he made, his big splash with Ekholm at the trade deadline, and that's been maybe one of the biggest improvements for this team in a long time. And I look at this, defense core, and when you can say, 3 of your, 6D are Ekholm, Darnell Nurse, and Evan Bouchard, and you can throw in Kulak in there, who is a hell of a playoff performer, I think, on D. Like, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, these are all players that everybody in the league should know. And it's finally, we've got a defensive core that's hard to play against, right? There are no gimmies anymore. So I'm happy to see that. And look, you could do this forward lineup however you want. You've still got Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Evander Kane, and Hyman on there. And if you need to disperse them throughout the lineup, well, shit, you can do that, right? Like, Nuge can play third line if you ever needed him to up the value of that third line, right? Like, this is a solid team, and I really love what Ken Holland said. You teams that are good make it to the playoffs consistently, and then they have a time when they go for it, right? And this has got to be the year, right? This year or next year. The Oilers are definitely going to be Stanley Cup contenders this year. I just can't see it any other way. But they have to have – I would love if they just had a season where they went through the season without having any major blips, which just never seems to happen. There's always a point at which the sky is falling and everybody wants Holland to quit or get fired. And at some point – that'll probably happen again this season, and you just hope that they get it together earlier than later. So that's it. That's all I've got. We'll start with the final words. We'll go Dash, Lotzi, and then the new guy. We'll get to finish off the show tonight because I haven't seen him in forever. Hair grew inwards, lost some weight, everything going for him. Good to see you. Really enjoyed having you on the show. Lotzi, I don't think you've been on Oilers Live for a while. You were on the we did the trade, or not the trade, draft day.
Draft watch.
Yeah.
We haven't done Oilers Live for a while.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back.
Yeah. So loved having you guys all here. We'll start with you, Dash. Final words.
Welcome to the Fantasy Hockey Hacks. Welcome to Keith Morris. Nice to see that heavy hockey is growing. Jeepers. I don't know. How do I top Keith talking about Connor Brown becoming a sledge hockey player to get his 11th game in, and Lotzi just raging when we don't agree with him. There's not much else I can say on top of that. I had a dream. I was hoping Kelly from Beer League was going to be on because he loves story time with Dash, baby. But I had a dream that the Oilers made a trade for Kyle Connor, since the Jets are wholesaling everybody. And since he's a left winger, we had Connor on the top line. And in my dream, I'm not even shitting you, there was a sign in the stands that said 3 gingers. That's my last words.
Awesome. All right, Lotzi, you're up.
Speaking of things I don't know how to top, oh yeah, we'll also throw a welcome to the Heavy Hockey Network out there for Fantasy Hockey Hacks. It's great to have you guys on board, and looking forward to engaging with a bit more of your content. In my last word tonight, I'm going to point to a comment that I'm currently looking at on the sides here from some stranger that says, "Man-to-man D has to go." I fully agree with this assessment. It killed us in the first half of last season. so often it was so easy to beat us because you just bring the Oilers defensemen up high to the point, and they would follow you up to the point. And then that vacates a hole in the slot and just creates all sorts of confusion. We saw it rear its ugly head in the playoffs again. There was an important goal against the Knights where Darnell Nurse was chasing high and got caught up with Warren Fogle. And then I can't remember who went in and scored. It might have been Hag that went in and scored, but it was a big goal at a big time. But I think, and there's been a lot of situations where forwards get beat off the half wall, and again, chaos ensues. I'm just thinking back. Nick Bukestad even got beat man to man by Jonathan Marchessault a couple times for big important goals. So I fully agree with that. Man-to-man D definitely needs to go. I think they'd be smart to employ some sort of zone defense to keep our D from roaming too far above the face-off dots in our own end. But yeah, I'll shut up about that for now, and I'll pass it on to Kirk.
Awesome. I think you're right. Stauffer mentioned it today on Oilers Now that the zone defense was invented in football to contain speed. And that's what they're doing against McDavid. So
there's not many teams out there playing a full man-to-man anymore.
Well, they've already broken the cardinal rule. Kirk talking while the last word's supposed to be going on.
It's all good. No, it's good to be back. It's been a while since I've been here. Thanks again, Michael, for allowing me to come on and offer my 2 cents, no matter how big it is, or I'm just here to help out. Shout out to Fantasy Hockey Hacks. The Sasky invasion continues. We're getting badly outnumbered from everywhere else. There's no true blue Albertans here except for me, and I'm pretty sure Lottie's from here as well. But shout out to them, man. Like it's awesome to have you guys on board. I just wanted to add, thank you to some stranger for saying that I look 20 years younger. I'll take that any day of the week. I don't feel 20 years younger, I could tell you that much. Just a little side note, I will be doing some more podcasting here in the future on my own show, the Pal Down Podcast. Hopefully have some more guests on. I'm going to reach out to some people. Yes, you, Dash, as well. I haven't forgotten about you. Just like every year, everywhere else, just a human billboard. But yes, I will hopefully be doing some off-season podcasts here, have some excellent guests on. And to top it all off, thanks for everybody over the year that has checked us out. We've added some new fans. That means you, Angel. Thank you so much. And then shout out to some of our enemies that actually check us out and, give us props for our content. So with that being said, good night, everybody.